In this video, we're going to talk about how sex and money are losing their value, kind of going down in style to a point where it's viewed as overrated.
Our channel is dedicated to improve quality of life through increasing your perspective IQ on the things that are most impactful, which are your health, assets, and relationships. In this topic, we're going to do a combination of your mental health, your self-relationship, and your intimate relationships.
Absolutely. So the whole thing is to understand that why sex and money are losing their value, you got to kind of look at it as kind of like food. So say water and food gets less valuable after being consumed. So let me illustrate this. So let's say you're really hungry and you're craving pizza.
Mm.
So you eat pizza, you eat a slice of pizza, you eat two slices of pizza. The next slice is less valuable because you already got your fix. So you're not as thirsty or hungry. So what happens is if you're thirsty, you drink a glass of water, the next one is not gonna be as valuable
Mm-hmm.
as
You're
the
not going to
first one.
appreciate it as much.
Yeah, you kind of go to 0 to 1, and zero nothing to 1 to is a very great is a big difference. It's not like kind of gray, it's like black to white right away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the immediate difference. So if you drink a glass of water, that might be enough until you get thirsty again.
Mm.
Or if you eat, it's enough until. So if you drink a glass of water, you're like, oh, okay, I can have another one. Okay. But the third one is not going to be as valuable because you already had that fix. So sex and money is kind of like that. So what happens is that guys on the sex part, they're not valuing it as much until they get their fix.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that a lot of things are being outsourced. So OnlyFans is a very popular thing right now, and it actually feeds both of the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That the relationship is a guy wanting sex and the girl wanting money.
Mm-hmm.
So that that value exchange. So the guy gets the sex, views a new woman naked or whatever, gets a novelty. He gets his ends met pretty
Mm-hmm.
cheaply, and the woman gets the money, and she actually doesn't have to exchange an actual sex. So it kind of it's like a glass of water. It's not like the real thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it's close enough. It's kind of
It's
like
enough to be satiated,
yeah, well maybe it's like drinking a beer. It's not really
hydrating, or
hydrating,
nutritious.
but it's good enough,
Gets the job done at
right?
least if you're thirsty.
It,
Mm-hmm.
it does that thing. So that's what is kind of happening.
Mm,
So what happens is it's less work for the man than actually like it takes a lot of work to actually get laid for a guy.
absolutely.
So he's looking at that and he's all like, "Wow, I just want to calm my nerves, get the urges out. We can
Hmm.
do it this way or that way, and then go on and go forth." So it's looked down on because what does it require for a man to do
It takes
to
a
get
lot.
sex
Hmm.
than that? And what does it require for a woman to get money? Well, if
Hmm.
she's good looking, she can leverage
Her
her
looks.
looks and get money. But like the girls that are not as good looking, they actually have to work harder for it. So
Hmm.
that's the whole thing is that how much money do you have to work for to actually live a pretty good life? So like women, even if they don't have the looks, the
Hmm.
world is very accessible to make some money and it's you can be successful
Hmm.
without depending on your looks. So
Hmm.
what happens is that women are needing less men for money and men are needing
Women
women less
less.
for sex.
Mm.
And even then, they some of the men get a lot of the sex
Hmm.
and some women get a lot of the money. It's easier for them to get money. So that's the whole thing. It's kind of like why is it kind of going out of style? Why is it that we're doing that?
Hmm.
So the whole thing is that
Well, it seems like what you're kind of saying is that people are not appreciating the relationship as much. They're not really prioritizing it because they can get what their perceived needs met alone.
well, see
So,
what happens is that before that was wanted and
hmm.
the requirement was different than
Hmm.
now. So
Sure.
that's the whole thing. And overrated is because a lot of people are having access to it. So
Hmm.
if back in the day, what happens is okay, so this is goes from needing to wanting. So let me do an example real quick. So back in the day when women weren't allowed to work, they needed to live somehow, so they needed a man to supply them
Hmm.
with that kind of
Their
comfort,
support and the
support,
lifestyle. Hmm.
lifestyle. So
Secure.
they needed a man because the world wasn't like it is today where they can just go out and work.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed a man. So basically, they dealt with their shit to get what they needed to
To
get
survive.
to survive.
Right.
So they needed to deal with the man stuff because he was the one that has the access to provide as a provider. So that was one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, the women needed the men to provide and to protect because it
Mm-hmm.
was a wild, wild west.
Right.
So back in the day, it was looting and pirates and all Vikings kind of deal. They go over there and they steal your woman.
Mm-hmm.
So the woman needed a guy. That's why women they're attracted to muscular, tough,
Strong. Mm-hmm.
big guys because that was the determinant of being surviving. So they were attracted to that one as being a protector
Mm-hmm.
and a provider, a good hunter. So those were the things. Now we don't need so much as a protector because we have a system where you can just call
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of guys will protect a woman even
If they don't know
if
her,
they
if
don't know
they're
her
just in
to
the
some
vicinity.
degree. Some degree.
Mm-hmm.
There is some kind of protection of our culture there.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's not needed anymore to survive because those things are outsourced.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like for a woman, now a guy, you have to have more things than that. So now you have to be wanted. So the whole thing is that women are like, I have enough money, I have protection.
Mm-hmm.
Now
I want to
I
want you.
want a man to want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a man, I want a man. I hear that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that men most of the time want to be needed more than wanted.
Oh, I've
Because
heard that.
wanted takes a lot more work.
Mm-hmm.
It requires more of the man to be wanted in this one. So when I tell men, they're like, oh, what? They should do this. So
Mm-hmm.
when I hear men is like, look, I pay the bills, I do this, that's enough. It's like a girl saying,
I give him
I'm,
sex
yeah, give him
and
sex, I'm good looking enough,
I'm
and that's
pretty and
enough.
I give him sex. I don't need to do anything else.
So when I tell the guys that, they're like, oh, no, no, it's not enough just to be good looking and give me sex.
It's nice,
Exactly.
but it's not enough.
So
Mm-hmm.
after you're over that hurdle, after you're done drinking those 2 glasses of water, you're actually going to have to deal with the person. And what
Mm-hmm.
happens is when that's out of the way, you're kind of like, I need to be with a person that I want to be with
Right.
because you have to actually have a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a guy that's just with a girl for how she looks and the sex, then that's your value and that's low value because you need to go beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is that's why you're a thirsty guy. You want somebody to have sex with, and that's what you're catering to because you're thirsty.
Mm-hmm.
But after you're not thirsty, there's actually the girl needs to have some value.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of guys do have sex eventually with some girls if they try. They find around their relative value,
Mm-hmm.
and they start having sex, and they start realizing after sex out of the way that the person who she is really what matters.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes guys are like, I don't want to deal with this shit.
Yeah.
Like
Sometimes like
yeah.
they get the sex, they enjoy it and they're like, oh yeah, I finally. And then they kind of have like you say, like that clarity or whatever.
Hmm.
And then they look at the girl and they're like, oh, she's really beautiful, but she's not very bright. Or
Exactly.
she's really beautiful, but she's crazy. She's has a lot of baggage. And they're like, well, that's not really someone I want to deal with. And
Right.
then that's when they kind of move on. And
So,
then the same thing goes in reverse, right? Like,
well, yes, but it's a little bit different. So the
okay.
shortcut is that the guys will stay with the woman depending how she treats him.
Mm, mm-hmm.
That's the key. Now the other way around is that's what I tell guys. I go, if like a girl that she cares about money, how do you feel? Oh, like yeah. Well, that's when the girl sees when the guy all he cares about is sex.
Mm-hmm.
So after the girl is with the guy
Mm-hmm.
and everything, and he's just giving her money, and then after he goes, oh, he's very rich and stuff like that. He goes with that guy. She goes with the guy, and after everything's paid for, she's gonna be like, well, okay, that's good, but
Mm-hmm.
I still have to be with you. I still have to put up
Like
with
hang
you
out
and
with
hang out
you.
with you. I want to like you, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why sometimes men with money think, well, I have money, that's enough. It's like a girl saying, well, I have looks, that's enough, and the guys are like,
Well,
no, it's not enough.
that's when you hear
Exactly. They
about
go, you have to be somebody likable too.
well, that's when you hear about like the guys that are very wealthy but that get cheated on with the,
Right.
you know, the pool boy or whatever. It's like,
Hmm.
well, because just the money is not enough. If you're not actually like spending time with her or she doesn't actually like you,
Right.
then she's going to find those needs elsewhere. or
So those
wants.
voids are requirements from the two different sexes.
Mm-hmm.
The woman has to become a person that's enjoyable to be with. So
Mm-hmm.
she has to develop those characteristics, and so does the guy.
Absolutely.
But that's also taking care of those three things. I mean, those two things first.
Mm-hmm.
The guy be healthy, be attractive. That's what being healthy is. Staying in
Mm-hmm.
shape, taking care of yourself, look like I have a promising future. That's being healthy. And then have your shit together. It means have your money and your assets. You don't have to have more than enough. You just have to have enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hear a lot of women, he doesn't have to be rich, but as
Mm-hmm.
long as I get along, we make a team and this. That's what they say. But to do it, it takes a lot of work.
She has to put in just as much work as him. It's not all on him.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the girls and the guys are like, well, she has to be good looking and have sex, but I also want to be with her, not just because of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So she has to become more, and he has to become more, because him and just providing good looks and money is not enough, and her just providing good
Good
looks
looks
and
and
sex
sex.
is not enough either. You
Yeah.
have to be enjoyable to each other. So what happens is that being single is a popular notion because we are species that take the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when we're young, we're like, okay, money and sex, let's just get that and move on. But you start getting older and you're kind of like you're missing something. So what happens is what's being outsourced, a lot of people are saying no to instead of dealing with the relationship. Let's say if you're a person that wants to have kids,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of women that are getting just
Artificially
the sperm,
inseminated. Mm-hmm.
artificial insemination, and just not to deal with a guy
Yeah.
to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
So if guys want to have kids with a woman, they need a woman too. But now they're getting surrogates if they want kids, so they have control.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have the kids and
And
not
not
deal
deal
with
with
that.
her.
So that's a way around it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is money. So guys, well, they need money to get the girl, and they're saying, you know what? I'd rather not make money and not get the girl
Mm-hmm.
because it requires a lot of work to get money. So that's why there's a lot of broke guys because they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, I'd rather I have to work and spend money on the girl. I'd rather not work. So they're going around it. They're just saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And guys and girls will be like, I don't want a guy that I depend on. So screw that guy. I'll make my own money. See how they go around?
Mm-hmm.
So what they're doing is outsourcing that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So protection and security from a woman is being outsourced from other men.
Mm-hmm.
The police department,
Fire department.
simps, whatever you want to do it, call it or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, other men. Okay, so that's being outsourced. Guys being outsourced from security and protection is also being outsourced by other men and other by calling and stuff like that, or they take protection themselves. One of the biggest things that I hear, which is the equalizer in protection, is guns. So I see a lot of guys, they're let's say short, they're weak, stuff like that. They carry a gun. I
Mm-hmm.
don't blame them. So
Well, yeah.
that's the equalizer. So see, they're being outsourced by something else. Now, sex for guys is being outsourced with pornography, strippers, prostitutes, and then OnlyFans
OnlyFans.
girls and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So that's being outsourced by them. Girls are outsourcing sex. Well, they can go on Tinder.
Mm-hmm.
They go use sex toys,
Mm-hmm.
and they outsource it by.
Well, I think
I
it's
think that's it,
easier
right?
for women to get sex. So, like, even if she goes out to the club and she just wants to hook up, it's easy for her to do so. So she doesn't have to have a relationship to get her needs met.
Exactly. So, but sex toys are one of them,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is actual like
Yeah, I do.
Tinder.
I hear
That
that a lot. Like, I don't need a man. I have my vibrator.
yeah. It's
Sadly.
like when a girl says that, it's like a guy saying, "I'd rather just masturbate."
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're saying. So, a friendly reminder: if at any time you get value from this video, hit the like button because that tells us to make more of what you like, and don't forget to subscribe for more perspective IQ. So, this is what they're outsourcing. So, it takes a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
to have kids. It takes a lot of work to get money to get a girl, and it's a lot of work to deal with the guy's bullshit for his money.
Mm-hmm.
And then protection is also a lot of work to get somebody to protect you, and it gets a lot of work to deal with somebody else to protect. Like guys are saying, no, I don't want to protect her, and I'm more safe, so I'd rather not have a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying that the value that's okay when you're young, but see, this is what's missing that you don't, that a lot of people don't see is in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that a lot of the self worth is integrated with somebody else accepting you. Being accepted by somebody else feels amazing. That's why compliments feel so good. That's somebody else's perspective
Saying, I
of,
see your worth.
right. So
Hmm.
it's a judgment. So if somebody says something bad, you're like, oh, I don't want to be criticized. But if they say a compliment, that's like good criticism.
Hmm. Like a
But
good
we
judgment.
like to
Hmm.
receive that and not receive the bad.
Right.
And that's the thing is that we get a lot of self worth from other people's opinion.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
like a girl says, I can send my own flowers, like Miley Cyrus. It's like a guy sending himself a gift or like sending himself his own nudes. Like it doesn't make sense. Like guys,
Hmm.
they don't see it and stuff like that or whatever. They don't say it. But a girl that sends herself flowers, in our eyes, she's just a loser because
Hmm.
she can't get anybody else to send them.
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of losers that will send their flowers, but see, they send anybody flowers.
Hmm.
That's why they're losers.
That's why it doesn't seem valuable.
Right.
But you do it in a
So,
sense for the what is it, the perspective. So it's like sending yourself flowers. Let's say you send yourself something to the office. It's because you want someone to believe that you're valuable. So you don't do it just because you enjoy it. You do it because you want other people to perceive you in a certain light.
yeah, but like, say the girls say, oh, I don't need anybody to know. I just send them to me and not anybody know. I was like, okay.
Well, that's what you call a plant at home.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, you saying you have to send yourself flowers and not anybody know to make you feel better. I mean, that just sounds like you're a loser.
Hmm.
It's like guys, I was like, oh, I got laid, and what he did was just masturbate.
That's a funny one.
It
Hmm.
doesn't work, guys.
Hmm.
So, I dress for myself and stuff like that. It's like a guy gets dressed up in a suit and he go works in his car.
Hmm.
Oh, I do it for myself. Okay, dude, you're just a fucking loser.
Yeah, it's
That's
like saying you're
basically
full
it.
of you're like full of
Yeah,
shit.
because it's like the reason you wear clothes is to project an image.
Hmm. So that you
Because
can be judged in a certain light that you hope that they receive it
yeah,
for
so
what you're
it's like when
portraying.
somebody says you got a nice style, I'll be like, oh, thank you.
Hmm.
So like what happens is when somebody sends like say flowers to a girl, the flowers is not the actual work. It's from who it's coming from. If
Hmm.
a guy has a lot of options and he sends flowers to you, what he's really saying is no to everybody else and he thinks you're the best. And what happens is he has an abundance of choice and he sends it to you, that means something. If
Hmm.
somebody that's ugly and stuff like that sends you flowers, well, he would just send anybody flowers.
Hmm.
He'll take what he can get.
Yeah, you don't feel as appreciative of it either.
Exactly. So
Hmm.
it depends who it's coming from. That's a real value. So if a girl is sending herself flowers, it's kind of saying, okay, let's say she has good taste. She knows how to pick somebody, and she views herself as good self value. So if she can know how to choose somebody of good value, how come she hasn't chosen somebody that can recognize her value?
Hmm.
It's because she doesn't choose well.
Hmm.
So a lot of the girls that are single is because they can't choose well. Because if they would choose well, then they would be with somebody that
Hmm.
actually likes them for who they are.
Hmm.
What happens is that it's hard to admit that you keep choosing and they keep rejecting you.
Hmm.
And they're like, oh, it's so convenient to
So
say
just
it's everybody else's fault. That's why guys say, oh, girls are this and that and this and that. And I go, it's because you're not good enough
hmm.
to demonstrate something valuable worth keeping.
Hmm.
Because remember, we live in a world now that they want to be with you, not need. And that's why when guys complain, he goes, back in the day, see, back in the day, you were needed.
Hmm.
That's why they were with you, because you were needed, not because they wanted to.
Hmm.
So it's actually a better value to be wanted than
Hmm.
needed. So we go back into a lot of people, a lot of relationships, like my grandparents, they loved each other, but they didn't like each other.
Hmm.
So
And
that's
we
a
all know
point
that
that,
one relationship too.
right?
Yeah, there's the people too that are more worried about, like you were saying earlier, about like the perception. So more people are concerned with the title and just being portrayed as the good father, a good husband, than actually being a good father, a good husband, or even a wife. Like a lot of women just like the title of wife, like, oh, someone chose me, I am worthy, but then they don't actually display the qualities to their partner of being a good
Yeah,
wife.
what Amber's saying there is that a lot of people put a front
Mm.
in the relationship like they're a happy couple,
Hmm.
but behind the scenes, they're miserable.
Yeah.
So they want to put like, I'm a wife, I'm a husband. See, there's some value. When
Hmm.
you're a wife or husband, what is kind of accepted there is that somebody cares for you. There's somebody in the world that loves you
Hmm.
because you're worthy of being loved.
Mhm.
But usually it's the idea. That's the title. So there's a lot of men that look like the husband role, but not the husband.
Mhm.
So they want to look that man of the house, but yet their relationship is no good.
It's like when you read the post once a year when someone's like, "Oh, happy anniversary" on Facebook, and they just write the most beautiful thing about their partner.
Hmm.
But then it's like you know them, and you're like, "That's not how they interact with each other. You know that's
Basically,
not
they're full
true."
of shit.
Like they can't stand each other. But
Right.
that's a beautiful way of writing it. But you guys
Exactly.
can hardly stand it to be in a room together for more than 5-10 minutes.
That's right. So being actually viewed by somebody as worthy or wanted is actually feels the best when somebody actually likes you and loves you.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of relationships are fake relationships. There's that movie that we saw, Daddy-O, and it talks about that men put more importance on looking like the husband than actually being the husband,
Mm-hmm.
or looking like the father than actually being the father.
Mm-hmm.
So a father basically is just your DNA. But actually being a father and being involved in your kid's life, that's the hard part. They
Mm-hmm.
just want to look like they did a good job, but it
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of responsibility to be a father and a mother. I think it's the hardest job ever because that's a forced relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing is the title. They put more importance on the title than actually being the part.
Right.
So what's really missing on that part when you really get a relationship is to be a real father, to really do the work, is what's missing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people want the sugar to look like the father, but not actually be the father,
Mm-hmm.
or to look like the mother and not actually be the mother.
Right.
So the thing is that the titles is what's more important than actually being the person. So what
Some are worthy of the
actually
title.
you're missing what the the growth, the progression of becoming a better person,
Mm-hmm.
because you're taking the shortcut. It's like, oh, I'd rather have the title than actually doing the requirements to be that kind of a person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you're missing when you don't have those relationships.
Right.
The other one is reassurance or loyalty or the ride or die or
Through
through
thick and
thick and
thin.
thin. What happens is that when you're single or you don't invest in those relationships, what in the when you get older, that's what's going to be missing.
Mm-hmm. Someone that
So
has your back to take care of you
you
and
might get in a relationship and might be loved but not liked.
mm,
And you might be loved to a certain point. Now, the reason I say this is when I visit hospitals or nursing homes and stuff like that, there's a lot of people that don't get visited,
a lot of people are alone.
or people are alone because they have nobody that loves them, and even their kids don't love them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't like them. That's why they don't go. They might love them. They say that, but they don't act it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people say a lot of things. Oh, I love you, but their actions are not congruent.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing is that if you don't invest in a relationship when you're more compatible when you can, and you don't put in the work, you're going to pay the price later and
Mm-hmm.
be lonely. And that lonely is a common thing. So that's why I think a lot of people, their mental health suffers, their self relationship, because we get a lot of value of being worthy by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the whole thing. That's why when people get cheated on, it's kind of like, oh, he doesn't look at me as being worthy to keep me.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it feels so bad.
Yes.
Because if you didn't care what people other thought, then
Mm-hmm.
people would just be like free and open and do
Sure, they
whatever.
see it like a
But that's
rejection.
not it. It's what happens is like say open relationships, it's like temporary use only, it's okay, but there's no long term benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So see, they're just getting that first glass of water. I just want sex or I just want money. But after a while, sex and money loses its value because the real value of a relationship is actually being in the presence of liking somebody and having somebody's back.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like, I don't know, if something happens to me, I'm reassured that this person is loyal, and we go second thing. We grow old together and we
Mm-hmm.
like each other, and we're gonna try time travel through this thing that we call life,
Right.
and we're gonna be together. So one of the things that you miss out by being single and all that stuff is that reassurance and loyalty. And what happens is that you have to accept, if you want somebody to reassure you, that you have to actually have some self worth. That's why you need to develop as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So we get a lot of value from other people, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But to be considered valuable from another person, you have to develop those characteristics. That's why I say value recognizes value.
Mm-hmm.
So That's why a lot of people really get relative to their value.
Hmm.
So that's another thing that they'll be missing. The other one is really the outside perspective of somebody in. So if you're by yourself and you like I can get something else, you're really gonna miss out is having a person that's next to you. And if you are when you have somebody that likes anything, you can be honest with the person.
Hmm.
You can tell them those good criticisms,
Hmm.
constructive criticism. So you have an outside perspective. So you have not only one perspective, which is yourself, as you have another one, and that leads you to a better viewing of life. So what happens is that when you have somebody else, you have another perspective in your favor.
Right.
And if you're not, you're going to be missing that. So a lot of
Hmm.
people are stuck in their own head, and that's why they're alone.
Hmm.
Sometimes they can't even see it the other way. And usually, if they get older and stay single, it usually stays that way because it's harder to accept other people's perspective.
Hmm.
They say they have an open mind, but a lot of people, they have an open mind under certain conditions.
Well, it's like too, we have relationships and we see like family members or friends, and we're like, we all see the problem and we have like a solution for them, but we know that they can't hear it. So within an intimate relationship, you have someone there that is looking from the outside in saying, hey, I see this could be a potential problem or something. I care about you. I have your best interest at heart. Let me express it so where we can, improve yourself and our relationship.
So if it comes from somebody you actually love and like,
Hmm.
then you'll consider it, most
Absolutely.
likely.
So even if it's hard to hear, you're like, well, this person loves me, cares for me, has my best interest. Why wouldn't I listen to them? They're not being hurtful. They genuinely have merit in what they're saying. And if I can't take the criticism or be like, wow, I have room for improvement, then what does that say about yourself? It's kind of like saying, well, you're stuck, stagnant, and you're not really worth improving on either.
So the whole thing is ego based there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're self involved, ego based, it's kind of like, oh, okay, you're perfect, you can't improve. So that's like a fixed mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You have no growth. And if you have growth, then wow, you will probably take into more consideration the people that like you and
Mm-hmm.
love you. So sometimes friends, when you tell them something and they don't like it, they stop being your friends. It's because they just want confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm.
They want somebody to confirm what they already believe. So they're fixed there. They don't want any outside criticism. They don't want
New
any
perspectives,
negative
no
feedback.
growth. Mm-hmm.
So what happens there is that you become by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens as society, we evolve better more as a group. So people specialize in different fields and stuff like that, and that's what needs to be a progressive society. So when you're by yourself, that's when you're lonely. That means you're not accepting other perspectives. That means that you're not willing to change because you think you're good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. I'm not good enough. Nobody's good enough.
We
What
all have
happens is that
deficiencies.
yes, we're all full of ourselves. We think we're better than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not special. Nobody's special. The only thing is that you need to keep improving. You need to deserve the things that you want. And if are not getting them, it's because you're not good enough. And that's okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
just information because you're not good enough yet.
Yet. Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing is really seeing another perspective. Takes a lot of work, but it's worth it because
Mm-hmm.
you're with somebody that actually is on your side
Right.
to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So being by yourself to grow and being with somebody else to grow is like what makes more sense. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that you're missing is on the synergy. So you
Absolutely.
have two people. Was it Chris Rock is to move a couch? It's easier with two people than one person. And there's a lot of things in life that's a lot easier with
Mm-hmm.
two people.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that when we're young, we can outsource, we can do a lot of things. But when you get older, it's harder to replace those things that we're missing. Because if you look at it, sex and money is not going to buy you self-worth.
Mm-mm.
It can make you feel better,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to buy you. You can't pay somebody to tell you you're very valuable.
You can't pay somebody to
You
like
can't
you
have somebody with
genuinely.
you can't have sex with somebody and then I'm telling you that they're really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
No, because it's a physical action. It's not a mental worth. It'd be like, hey, I had sex with you because you really had a good personality. No, it's
No, I
old
keep you
like
around
old.
because
I
you
bet
have a
you
good
there's old people with
personality.
good personality and they're not. People are not having sex with them for them.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing is that that you can't buy those things. You can't buy somebody else to give you flowers. You can't buy somebody else to be genuinely interested in you, to desire you. You
Mm-hmm.
can't buy those things. You
No, those are things you
you
have to
can't
be
buy
worthy
them with
of.
sex, and you can't buy them with money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the whole thing. Like the pleasure you can buy, but the actual trueness you cannot buy it. You cannot buy reassurance from somebody through sex and money,
Mm-mm. Or loyalty.
or loyalty, or the ride or die, or through anything thick and thin.
Mm-mm.
You can't do that. So it's like some guys that run out of money and she bounces.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's she wasn't a ride or die. She wasn't thick or thin.
Yep.
And the guy, he goes after he gets his sex, and then you don't treat him the way he likes, and he bounces. It's kind of like, see, he was just partying it for the sex. He was. A lot of guys know when the long term is with a girl, so they already know which ones they want to invest in.
Mm.
It just they're just dealing with it until then they make
Mm-hmm.
a choice and be like, oh, it's not worth it. And they're like, man, this whole time. It's hard to see when a guy really wants to be with you because it kind of looks the same.
Mm.
So you cannot buy that. You cannot buy somebody accepting you for you are with through sex or money. You cannot buy another true out perspective with money and with sex
Mm-hmm.
because it's just it has to be first you have to be open to receive that whole statement. Like like consultants, they can be paid for it and go, but see, you have to be open first and you have to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, sometimes they don't agree. Even when you pay for it, a lot of feedback is not taken.
No, it's not actually integrated or
Right, because a lot
used.
of people want to pay to confirm what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of them. And synergy, it's hard to buy through sex and stuff like that. You can buy synergy through a job. You can buy synergy so you have other employees. You can buy, like if you're an owner, you can buy other employees.
Mm-hmm.
That's a synergy. But that's a company, not a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's a professional relationship. But you can't buy it through intimate. So it's all those things you're missing because you have to develop as a person to be liked in order for those things to be given to you. So the solution is, before we tell you the solution is, if you find this useful, send it to somebody that might use it to get a different perspective. So the solution is that basically the relationships are constant, ongoing negotiations of value exchange. So you got to know what is value and you got to give it to receive it first. So if you're looking at self relationship, how are you going to give and then receive? You're going to have to give the work and the effort before you receive the benefit. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like working out, being on a diet. You have to give that effort first, be on the diet to do the work, and then you'll receive the benefit. You're not going to receive the benefits and then do it later. There's no credit. So like you
No.
have to do the work. It's like I'm gonna go work out
No, that'd be
5 days a
like,
week. Can I get the benefits now and then do it later? No, it doesn't
or
work that
like
way.
going up to a guy being like, hey, I'm 40 pounds overweight, but hey, in about 3 years, I'll be, less and more attractive.
Can you seem
Can,
more
can you,
attractive now?
yeah, can you
No.
just pretend I'm more attractive now?
No.
Like, that
So like
doesn't
yeah,
work.
in your self relationship, you got to give the work first and then receive the
Mm-hmm.
benefit later. That's why a lot of people, when they want to self improve, they start with their diet and the way that they look
Their appearance. Mm-hmm.
because it does make you feel better. So when you do it, that's when you're proud.
Mm-hmm.
So making the choice and actually doing the work makes you proud. So you have to give it before you receive it. That's in the
So you
self
become someone
relationship,
of value to
right?
receive someone of value.
So why wouldn't it work with somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
You have to give them value and then they reciprocate.
Right.
That's what happens. So like when guys are creeps, like they buy something like a gift for a girl,
Mm-hmm.
it's because they're kind of charging them like, "Oh, I gave you something, give me what I want."
Yeah.
So that's
So
kind of
that's not what
creepy.
he's talking about. Yeah.
But you want to do it is like you want to give them because you actually like them, not
Mm-hmm.
because they just look good.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, hey, I like this person. I want to devote more time to him. Here's a gift, no strings attached, and they naturally want to reciprocate because
Right.
they're attracted to the person you are.
Mm-hmm.
So if a girl says, I'm gonna sleep with him because he buys me stuff, it's kind of like a prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
But if the girl says, I'm gonna sleep with him because I like who he is and I see a future, very different. Even though they he is
The,
he is having some value with her.
mm-hmm.
So I'll be like, oh, I like her, not just to have sex with her, it's because I actually like to hang out with her, and I happen to buy these things. And if she reciprocates, oh, I'll give them sex because I'm attracted to them. I want to have sex with them, and I like being with them. See, it's very different.
Right.
So you could do the same thing for different. It's like I buy this, so she gives me sex. Oh, I'll give them sex, so keeps buying me stuff.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's more artificial.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. Is that if you want a girl to sleep with you for who you are, will become a
Someone
person that they're
someone wants to sleep with.
somebody wants to sleep with. If a girl you want a guy to actually be with you for who you are, then be a good person that a guy wants to be with,
Mm-hmm.
not just looks. So that's the
Absolutely.
whole thing is that you have to really give people what they want to receive what you want,
Mm-hmm.
and then it works well. It works in
It
harmony. It's a
creates like a
constant,
reciprocating
right?
upward spiral.
So it's a constant ongoing negotiation is because people keep going. And when you hear people, it's not worth anymore. See, it's not worth the value exchange. I had enough of it. That means,
You're not getting what you believe you're putting
right.
in.
And there's a lot of things that are not physical, they're intangibles that are really worth it. So we talk about it. The assurance. Basically, it's the other person makes you feel good that you're with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically it.
Yep.
Like, I feel good being with her because she makes me feel good. Why would I want to leave that? And the other
Mm-hmm.
way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you make me feel good that I can't help but want to reciprocate to make you feel good. And then when I make you feel good, you reciprocate. And it just kind of ebbs and flows back and forth in
Yeah.
this really
It's a
happy.
dance. It's a
Mm-hmm.
dance.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you just gotta give, and then if they don't recognize it, well then you
That's
go
when you
with
cut your
somebody else
losses. Mm-hmm.
and give, and they don't. They give, and then you have to go through it for a while
Mm-hmm.
until it's reciprocated, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to be knowing how the person is
And
reacting.
you also have to realize too that what you're giving is a really worth reciprocation. Because if you just give, but you don't look inward at the same time to see why you're not getting reciprocation, then sometimes that's part of the problem too.
That's self-respect. If you're giving and not receiving, you're into the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a simp, guys. And a girl, if you're
Mm-hmm.
giving a lot of sex and you're not getting reciprocating the guy up, don't
Mm-hmm.
be a girl simp, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like find out too, like where you might be going wrong. So I think it's really good to look inward as well.
If you improve yourself, you'll benefit directly. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, if
Someone
you know
else.
what it takes to be that kind of a person, you'll recognize it because you've
Absolutely.
done it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it takes. That's why a
That's
lot
where
of
the
people recognize value.
that's why
Value
that
really quick.
there's that cliche, it takes one to know one. So
Exactly.
usually that's used in a negative connotation, but you could use it in the same way.
Don't forget to subscribe.